Hello, this is a Pacesetter training video where we're going to talk a little bit about custom windows, how to scope, and how to write and what to look for when scoping for damage to custom windows. So typically with windows, to replace windows, we have to have frame damage. That's not always the case, but the general rule is, and again, check with your particular account manager for the guidelines that the carrier has for how they want to handle damage to windows, of when we're replacing entire windows, when we are replacing maybe just the sashes of the window, or if we have, say, wooden windows that are cladded with aluminum. Maybe some carriers want to still go ahead and reclad windows. That's not as common these days, but again, check with your manager. So typically the case is, though, is if we have hail damage to the frame of the window, then we would probably go ahead and replace the entire window. If the hail damage is only to, say, the sash, again, check with the carrier or check with your manager to see how they want to handle that, but the sashes can be replaced and not replace the entire frame or replace the entire window. If you have, say, hail damage to maybe just the glazing, the glass on the window, again, check with your manager, but typically we would only pay to reglaze the windows. If you had hail damage to the window beading, again, you would probably only do a repair and replace the damaged window beading. But we're going to talk about custom windows and how to kind of handle those and what they usually are. So let's take a look first at some pictures. We're going to open up a couple of these pictures and kind of go through these. So typically custom windows, not always, but typically they're going to be wood windows, and they're going to be on the outside cladded with aluminum like this. The inside, they're going to be probably exposed wood. We'll see that shortly. That's not always the case, but generally that's the case for custom windows. Custom windows can be vinyls and things like that, but the more expensive, typical custom windows you're going to run into are going to be wood windows that are cladded. And typically you're going to see this dents in the metal cladding. So this would be the sash, the part that's inside the frame that maybe moves up and down, slides back and forth. If it's a horizontal sliding window, for instance, if it's a casement window, the sash would be the part that cranks out, in and out. That is the sash of the window. That has the glass in it, maybe the grid, and that is inset, or the sashes, maybe more than one, are inset in the frame. So this would be the frame right here. We can see that we do have some damage to the frame and the sash. So, of course, we would replace this entire window. This is different types of flashing, Z flashing. It's a separate material typically from the window. It may be part of the window. Again, when you're out there and you see these types of windows, really any type of window, but particularly if we're replacing windows, document this very well. Take good photos, show us the damage, and then show us the construction of the window, how it's built and put together. Let's go to the next photo. Again, very common. Damage to the upper or the lower part of the sash. So hail falls out of the sky. A lot of times it'll hit the glass. It may break the glass. It may not, but it'll slide down the glass or directly hit this upper tier of the lower part. This is particularly the lower part of the sash, but this little ledge, and you'll commonly see hail damage here. So always look for those areas as well. In this case, we have just picture damage to the sash. We don't have a photo of the damage to the frame. So again, check with your manager of how they want to handle this, and they'll give you some information. The other thing you always want to look at, obviously, is identify the manufacturer, but also see if you can find any glass codes. Usually cheaper windows are not going to have any glass codes on them. They won't have any branding or manufacturer information on them, but always look. Typically those are going to be maybe etched into the glass, or very commonly they may be just a clear type sticker. Sometimes they're kind of hard to see. This is a piece of information that is typically on the, this is the energy ratings and things like that that are going to be on the window, probably at the store, let's say at Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards. This will come off, obviously, when the window's installed, but some of this information may be somewhere on the window. Try to find that, because if we have certain types of windows that have add-ins on them, for instance, if it's tempered, this is tempered and anneal, so it says the outside window, it's obviously a double paned window at least. The outside pane is tempered, the exterior, and the interior is annealed laminated. This is a low E window. The reason why you want to know this is because Xactimate has separate line items to add to pay more money for these types of additional features on windows. So see if you can find those, take a photo of that, and make sure you include that in the file, okay? Now let's keep going. Here are some of the more popular and well-known brands that you'll see out there. There are others. One thing I noticed on here that's really popular, especially up north and Midwest, is Marvin windows. You may see Windsor. I don't know if Windsor is still in business anymore. But these are more common. Of course, Pella, Colby are very well known. Anderson windows are very well known as well. So just try to look for any branding on the window, stickers, anything you can find to identify the brand and the manufacturer. That will help us pay for the additional amount of money we need to pay for custom windows. We'll talk about that a little bit once we get into the estimate. This is an example of Pella windows on the casement crank handles. Usually they're always going to have the little Pella logo. It's a little bit hard to see here. I've circled it, but take a look at that. Look on the crank handles on casement. See if there's any kind of a logo on there. Again, we're trying to identify the manufacturer. That will help us pay for a higher grade window. So let's talk a little bit about double and triple pane windows. Most common you're going to see is double pane. This is the metal, typically a metal spacer bar between the glazings. Typically these are going to be sealed and charged under pressure, maybe with argon gases. So very common, you're going to see double pane, and then sometimes you'll see triple pane. Triple pane, you're going to obviously see double spacers with a little channel in the middle, which is where the third glazing is installed. What you want to do is on any type of window, vinyl, it doesn't matter, aluminum, wood, cladded, if you're replacing sashes and windows, always go down and take a picture or two and the kind of the corner of the window in this area to show us what the construction is. If it's double pane, triple pane, let us know what's going on. Sometimes you'll even see coating on the metal spacer bar between the glazings. Take a look at those. If you see anything like that, take a picture of that. You may need to get online, potentially contact the manufacturer, get on their website, and see if any of those codes give you any additional information on the quality level of that window. So always try to take a picture in the corner just to give us a general idea of the window construction and if it's double or triple pane. Here's a good example of that type of photo. This is showing a double pane. It's just a corner shot. Now, if you've got codes in here, get parallel or perpendicular to those codes. Take a picture of those as well. But remember, always look for those codes. Take a picture. You don't need a picture like this for every window, but a couple of 2 or 3 maybe showing this is the type of windows they have. Now, if you've got different brands of windows that are constructed differently, maybe there are some double, maybe some triple. Yes, take a couple of shots of each of those types of windows and show us that there are different windows, maybe different brands, different constructions installed on the house or the structure, and that they are damaged and you're going to be writing for those. Give us that information. Another shot, similar, this is showing a triple pane window. As we can see the 2 spacer bars, we'll have an outside pane, an inside pane, and the center pane here. This is the little channel. This is a good example of that type of picture that you want to take. You also may see interior or integrated blinds or grid. You also want to notate that this is going to obviously raise the price and the quality level of the window. You'll be able to pay more for this. Take pictures of that. Show us that the blinds are integrated. Not too common, but on high-end windows you will see this at times. So just document that. Same thing with the grid. This is an example of grids between the glass. These are just an interior and exterior view of that. And as you can see, this is a little, that's pretty obvious on both of them. You can see the grid installed on the spacer bar between the two panes of glass. Again, we can add for that. We're going to pay more for that. You want to document all these types of things so that we can add that in Xactimate. Also, on any kind of windows you're replacing, if you're replacing entire windows, not necessarily sashes, but you should really with sash replacements as well. But certainly when you're replacing entire windows, always try to go inside the rooms and take overviews of the room, showing the room and the windows, and then interiors views of the windows as well, so that we can see how they're constructed. We may need to see, again, if there's furniture here, we may need to move out of the way, curtains, drapery, blinds. If there's casings that we may need to paint or stain, we need to see how the interior of the window is constructed. That will be very, very important to help us estimate properly and write our estimate correctly. Overviews of the room showing the windows. Then we want to, this is another example showing some overviews, kind of what's going on, how the windows, what kind of draperies and things we have in furniture. Here's some shots of the actual windows. You want to take these types of shots. This is a great shot showing that if you were replacing any of these windows, now you're going to have to be dealing with detaching some casings, maybe some window sills, potentially, probably not the aprons, but possibly. You're going to have to probably be staining all of this. You're going to certainly be staining new windows, but you're probably going to be detaching and resetting window casing and restaining all of this to get it all matching again. That's why we need these photos, to show the interior of the window construction. Very, very important, especially on custom windows. Another good example, this is a bay window. We would probably, if we were replacing all of this bay, we've got grids, we've got interior casings that are stained, we've got the sills, upper and lower sills that are stained. We would probably be detaching and resetting a lot of this and restaining all of this to match, to get it looking like it was before the loss occurred. And lastly, it's always a good idea. You may want to check with your manager to see if this is required. Some carriers want this. It's always a great idea to include this. Top tier adjusters will always do things like this. They'll give lots of information and documentation to let everybody know exactly what's going on. These are just diagrams, examples, not all 4 elevations of the structure. I just included the front and the right. This is showing where the windows are on the elevations and which windows are damaged that you're going to be writing in your estimate. Very, very helpful piece of information. You don't have to get elaborate like this and draw this in, some type of sketching program or Sketch. You can do it in Sketch if you want, but you don't have to do it in Word or in some graphics program. It looks nicer, not required. You could draw it by hand and show us which windows are damaged and which are not on each of the elevations, and just scan that and include that in your file. Attach that. That would be fine. No problem. But it's always a good idea, especially if you have multiple windows. If you've got one window on a house that's damaged, maybe 2, yeah, you probably don't need to do something like this. But if you've got a house that's just hammered with hail and you've got 2 or 3 sides, or maybe more, and you've got 15, 10, 30 windows that you're going to be replacing, absolutely it's a great idea to include these diagrams and let everybody know, showing where these windows are located and which ones are damaged and you're going to be writing for. Okay, so let's go look at the estimate real quick. I didn't really write an estimate in this training tutorial, but I did put some line items in here. to keep in mind. So as we looked at some of those pictures, I have some contents manipulation. If we've got furniture in the way of the windows, yes, we may need to move some of that out of the way so that the contractor can work. They're going to be inside and they're going to be outside working, pulling the windows out. Floor protection, absolutely. Let's protect the floor. Do we need to protect the entire room as if we were painting the room or the ceiling and the walls? Probably not, but you can include some square footage around the window, you know, maybe 2 or 3 feet on each side of the window and maybe 6 or 7 or 8 feet or so outside. If you want to put the whole room in, and it's not a huge room, you might be able to get by with that because the workers are going to be walking through the room, carrying the windows, and moving things around. So it could save the floor a little bit and protect it from just traffic itself and taking materials in and out. But you certainly want to consider including it. Here we have some window blinds. Again, the blinds may not be inside the window or integrated, but there may be normal window blinds. Obviously, we need to detach and reset those to get the window in and out or the sash in and out. Here's our casing. If they have casing inside installed and we need to detach and reset that, yes, we're going to write that casing, detaching, resetting. When we're getting into some of the windows here, I put aluminum in here to show you the difference in pricing. Here's an aluminum window, single hung, 2-pane, thermal, 13 to 19 square feet. In my database that I have in this particular claim, $525. Look at the same one, high grade, wood window, twice the cost. And this is the premium grade, a little bit higher than that, another not $200 roughly, $170. Here's an example of a casement window, wood. You can see these numbers are higher. So you're always going to use, unless you can identify the custom window, if it's vinyl or some other material that's obvious, you're going to write these wood or aluminum cladded windows, wood. You're going to always select the wood window, the type of window it is, single hung, casement, fixed, whatever it is, the correct square footage. You probably want to go with high grade, maybe even premium grade. Now the question is, which one do you go with here? Well, get with your manager and determine how the carrier wants to handle it. But generally, you can at least go with high grade, because I guarantee you Xactimate typically is going to be low on their normal standard grade windows, even the wood windows, when you're dealing with true custom windows. That's why it's so important to take good photographs at the risk of these windows and document these windows very well, because what that does is it gives more information to allow you to justify writing these higher grade or premium grade windows and adding all of these other extraneous features as line items. Document, document, document. Again, if you have questions, you can always talk to your manager to get more information. So you're always going to write generally these wood windows. Xactimate doesn't have aluminum cladded wood windows. It doesn't have, quote, custom windows. It has aluminum windows. It has wood windows. I just wanted to show you the difference. So if it's wood windows, you can see that on the inside, and they're cladded on the outside with aluminum. You're going to write wood windows, probably high or premium grade. Here we have those other feature line items I told you about. Add for low E. If you have a glass coat and you can see that it's low E is low emissions, is what that stands for. And we can add for that per square foot. I don't have any numbers in here in measurements, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the type of line items and the things you can be considering for higher grade windows or custom windows. Here we go, add for tempered glass per pane. There you go. If you've got glass codes and you can show that it's tempered, add it in there, absolutely. Grid, here's our grid stuff. If there's grid inside the window, outside the window, doesn't matter. We're going to add for grid. Staining and finishing the windows, that would be on the inside. Stain and finishing the sills, probably so. We may not be detaching and resetting the sills. It depends on the construction, and you would need to take pictures of that. But generally, you would not probably be taking the sill on and off, but we probably would go ahead and stain it or paint it if it's painted, because they're going to get them scuffed up when they're doing the windows. Scaffolding is something you're going to want to think about. If you have two two-story windows, you probably want to consider including some scaffolding. The setup and takedown is per hour, and then you're going to include a second line item per section. That's actually renting, quote, renting the sections per section per day. I have 20 hours in here. Let's say it was, 4 or 5 of them per day for 5 days or 4 days. That's, 20. So again, try to figure that out. The reason why, now obviously lower story windows, first floor, you don't need to do this. You want to consider always putting this in for upper windows, because you can't take windows in and out and do this properly on ladders, obviously. You have to have scaffolding. It's a safety issue. So we're going to pay for that. Also, you're going to consider including a dumpster. Now, depending on where this goes in the tree, for instance, AFIX, they want their second dumpster, not their roofing dumpsters, but any non-roofing, non-metal dumpsters they want in the general room, which is down here in this particular estimate. This is a tree for AFIX that we have to use. Check with your carrier. Maybe you can put it in the window room, but if you've got enough windows, even 1 or 2 windows, you could probably include a pickup truck or a car or something like that. But if you've got 30 windows, absolutely, you're going to be putting a dump truck, maybe even a small dumpster, depending on the amount of windows. So don't forget your debris removal for windows. If they are wood, check with your carrier, but typically they're not going to allow you to include a dumpster or debris removal if the windows are aluminum. They might not. Check with your manager. That's metal. The contractor can salvage that if it's metal. But wood, they cannot. Wood or vinyl, we would definitely include debris removal for that. So I hope that makes sense. We're not going to go into this in super detail, but this is something that adjusters, when you're newer, if you haven't dealt with custom windows, that you might not know how to deal with. One thing I just noticed in here, I didn't see that I forgot to put in here, is staining the casing. Remember, we have detach and reset the casing. Here I've got staining the wood window itself, staining the sill, but we would stain the casing if we did detach and reset the casing. So let's go up here, see if we can find that. Here we go, stain and finish casing. Perfect. We'll drop that in. We would put our lineal footage of all the windows total. You would add all that up. We're good to go. I just noticed that. So back to our finishing up here. Anytime you're running into any windows, keep all of this in mind to determine, are these custom windows? What type of windows are they? What are they made of? How are they constructed? On any windows, you should be taking these photos. Document this stuff inside and outside. On the inside, you may not have casing or stain if they're just vinyl windows, but go ahead and always document that. Take an overview of the room so they can see the windows. Take a close-up or so of the windows so we can see it. But certainly for custom windows with all this special construction and staining, you absolutely want to document that stuff properly and try to find out any of the glass codes and any of the manufacturing and branding and model information. That, again, helps you justify writing it properly and paying the insured the correct amount. So I hope that helps. As always, ask your manager for help, your claim supervisor. They'll be more than happy to assist you. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.